A long-range planning commission is suggesting more than $5 billion in maintenance and upgrades to state infrastructure over the next 8 years. That doesn't include more than $1 billion a year already being spent on roads and bridges. The cost of deferred maintenance is increasing at a time when the state is struggling just to fund current operations.
The Oklahoma Department of Transportation spends $160 million a year maintaining roads and bridges. Their annual construction budget is $770 million, with much of that going to reduce the number of structurally deficit bridges.
We are currently at 17% of our bridges are structurally deficient in Oklahoma. We have made significant progress. With the funding that has been sent our direction by the governor and the legislature, our goal is to have all of our structurally deficient bridges off of the system by year 2021.
Casey Shell is chief engineer for the Department of Transportation. 6,800 bridges and 12,000 miles of roads are in the state system, and there's more than $10 billion in backlogged road and bridge maintenance. To whittle away at that, ODOT is operating on an 8-year plan that in reality never ends.
To try to reach a goal of having an adequate transportation system in Oklahoma, it's going to take us at least that 8-year period.
Pushing that 8-year plan out even further are things ODOT wasn't expecting, like more than 100 cracks found in a critical bridge connecting Lexington and Purcell. The John Nance Bridge was closed on January 31st for repairs that will make the bridge structurally sound for another 10 years, but even then traffic will not flow normally again for some time to come because a new bridge has to be built.
Probably a year and a half, I would say at a minimum, on a 3,800-foot long bridge. The thing that we have going for us there, it will likely be built on an offset alignment, either partially or fully. And the way we will accomplish that is we'll allow traffic to run on the old bridge while we build the new one parallel to it.
Not nearly as visible as roads and bridges is infrastructure that dots every corner of the state. Sitting silently, protecting property and lives are watershed dams and reservoirs.
We do have 2,107 of these floodwater retarding structures in Oklahoma. That represents a $2 billion public infrastructure, and those provide more than $85 million of benefits annually, every year.
Robert Toole, Assistant Director of the Oklahoma Conservation Commission, says most of the dams are in good condition because of the maintenance his department performs.
There's always operation and maintenance that's required, and if we don't do that every year, there's always a possible threat to the integrity of the structure. And of course, trees and brush are one of those items that you have to keep cleaned off of a dam. That's the biggest challenge that we have, particularly in eastern Oklahoma.
But the number of high-hazard dams is now increasing.
We've got 251 high-hazard structures in the state of Oklahoma now. And just a few years ago, we only had 229. But we've got 251 because of downstream development.
A low-hazard dam becomes a high-hazard structure because of development. During Conservation Day at the state capitol, an interactive display showed how development affects watersheds.
All right, so this is a watershed. So every time it rains, everything through here is going to end up there.
Homes and other structures are now routinely built where it used to flood before the dams were built. That means what was originally a low-hazard dam is now considered high-hazard, and millions have to be spent upgrading the structure to handle the increased runoff and protect what is downstream. This is a rehabilitation project on the Fort Cobb Lateral Watershed Dam number 10, a few miles west of Anadarko in Caddo County. Each rehab project like this costs around $2 million, which is shared between the state and federal government. Chris Stoner is the state conservation engineer for the Natural Resources Conservation Service.
Many of these structures are 50 and 60 years old now, and there's been a lot of development down below them, so the focus and their protection has changed. They're protecting a lot more major county roads, even major highways in some cases, and if people build houses and move in downstream.
In 2007, a watershed dam along Sugar Creek in Caddo County felt the brunt of 8 inches of rain in less than 12 hours, and the dam nearly collapsed.
Luckily, it didn't happen completely. It came very close. This was a site in Caddo County following Tropical Storm Aaron, which dumped just extreme amounts of rainfall in a very short time period, and we came very close to losing this structure. It is a high hazard dam.
Storms like Tropical Storm Aaron, however, are no longer a rarity.
We had another one just a year later in another part of the state, over in the east in Wagner County, which did some pretty significant damage to another site of ours.
This is the video Chris shot of that incident, which shows what happened to the watershed dam that collapsed in 2008 in Wagner County. It also shows why rehabilitation projects like the one at the Fort Cobb Lateral Watershed Dam number 10 are necessary. The rehab there includes doubling the size of the discharge pipe, a new valve system extending the dam, a new spillway, and an enlarged water impact basin. The project is nearly complete. In its 2013 report card on Oklahoma infrastructure, the American Society of Civil Engineers gave the state a grade of D for its dams. The Conservation Commission's Robert Toole says that was largely a grade based on funding.
That is based on the lack of maintenance, on the lack of the ability to have the funds to perform the maintenance. For example, our conservation districts have submitted operation and maintenance plans to us that for the fiscal year, the remainder of fiscal year 2014 and all of 2015, we have nearly $9 million in maintenance demands out there.
The Commission gets less than half of that each year to do maintenance on the dams. And because of the funding shortfall, some dams are getting little attention.
We've dedicated those resources to high hazard structures. That has created somewhat of a gap in the amount of maintenance that we've been able to perform on low hazard structures.
The new farm bill for the USDA includes $250 million in funding to be cost shared with states for watershed dam rehabilitation. How much Oklahoma stands to get of that money is yet to be decided.